And good morning, St. Louis, or good afternoon, I should say. Good morning for you over there, Mike Claiborne. He's in Seattle for the Cardinals and Mariners series, and it's a tough one yesterday, Claibs, for the Redbirds. They fell 4-2.
Yeah, it was tough. Miles Michaelis deserved a better fate. You can't win in this game if you can't score, and they didn't score, and they had the one inning. They just kind of got away from them, the rest was history. I thought it was a pretty well played game for the most part, but that one inning really did the Cardinals in, and the last two innings, the at bats at the bottom of the order just weren't what they needed. I mean, we giving at bats away, and Seattle has some good pitching, but you got to be better in that situation.
And we talked about a little before the show. Seattle Stadium's beautiful. T-Mobile Park, can't complain about a nice road trip out there.
No, you can't. I mean, it's weather's good. They have a roof. They left it open last night. And it's in the confines are friendly. The ball travels there, but you know what? I found it to be one of the better parks. There's not in my opinion, there isn't a bad ballpark on the West Coast.
What
You start with Seattle, you look at San Francisco. Dodger Stadium is always one of my favorites. Anaheim for its age. I think Anaheim is maybe like the fourth or fifth oldest ballpark in baseball. And then you have, San Diego, which is one of the most fun places you can go.
I'm curious while we're on this topic, before the A's move, would you put the Coliseum in one of those good ballparks? Or
I'd push the Coliseum into the Bay.
Okay.
It was awful. I mean, I guess the problem was they didn't take care of it because they kept thinking they were going to get a new stadium and they didn't want to reinvest any money in it. But the field was always in great shape. It was a nice place. It was just old, and they didn't take care of it. The people there, and that was one of the unfortunate things. The ushers and concessionaires. I mean, they're a really fun, friendly place to be. And I felt bad for them because they got put out of a job, but it was a nice place to go. Now I was going there when the Raiders were playing there, and that's a whole different environment. The Raider fans were hostile at best. And so, but the A's fans are all fun-loving people.
It's crazy how different it can be just between the sports. But let's get back to the game yesterday. I want to hear your opinion because I have one on throwing Miles Michaelis back out there for the top of the sixth to face 1-2, or I think it was 9-1-2. Yes, his pitch count was low, but we've seen Miles Michaelis struggle that third time through the order. What was your opinion of it, of that decision?
I think had the bullpen been a little bit more available, I think they probably would have taken him out early. But you have to remember, you didn't have Swanson, you didn't have O'Brien, you didn't have Leahy, you had JoJo maybe for an inning, and everybody else, they're just kind of guys trying to feel their way through it. But I thought if those guys would have been available, he probably would have pulled them then. He doesn't have a lot of options right now, and it caught up to him yesterday.
Yeah, it felt like a little bit of a lose-lose situation. You're either throwing someone like FO or someone else inexperienced to face the top of the Mariners lineup, which is pretty darn good with Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. Suarez is batting a little lower, but it's a tough lineup to navigate. Or you're throwing Miles Michaelis out there for the third time through, and we've seen he's just not very good that third time.
Well, and I tell you, there was the walk he gave up. That from where I sat, I thought it was a strike. I think Miles thought it was a strike, and that kind of turned everything around. Because if you don't walk a Rosarina, Rivas, you probably can navigate it a little differently. I didn't think, I thought if you can get the first out, then maybe you turn it over to the pen, because you're looking for outs. You're looking for outs, and you don't have a lot of resources to go with. What do? Do you want to turn Raleigh around or let him bat from the right side? I mean, there are a lot of different scenarios, but I thought overall Miles had some pretty good stuff last night. It's hard, for him, when you don't have a lot of run support, you have to be a little bit more creative. And to your point, we've seen this multiple times. That third time through the order is where he gets himself in trouble. But I thought had he had a little bit more of a complement of people in the bullpen, you'd have done some things differently.
Yeah, and I think yesterday kind of is the epitome of the season, at least from a fan standpoint. Once again, I know a lot of people have given up on this playoff race, anything like that. But if you win yesterday, you're 3.5 back, and
exactly.
I don't know if I would quite call it striking distance with this little amount of games left to play, but you're within the hunt for sure if you win this. And that's what it's felt like time and time again. Anytime they can get within that possibility of finding a way into that third wild card spot, they drop a game or two, maybe they should not have.
Yeah, and you think about the Mets losing to Nola like yesterday. Some other teams were kind of fighting each other. Yeah, if you get within striking distance, if you go into the weekend 3.5, 2.5 back, you're going to Milwaukee. That's going to be a tough spot. There are no easy games on the schedule from this point on. When you think about obviously Seattle, then you go to Milwaukee, come home. Cincinnati thinks they have a chance, and then you go back on the road, and then you have to deal with San Francisco and the Cubs, two teams that are still fighting to stay in or get in. So yeah, there's nothing easy. But I thought last night would have been a real statement maker, especially after taking 2 out of 3 against San Francisco.
Yeah, it felt like that momentum could have just carried over,
Yeah.
and you still could win 2 out of 3, and maybe the Mets only win 1 game in this series against the Phillies, and all of a sudden you are 3.5 back, but just those missed opportunities. And I think if you zoom out a little bit at the end of the year, I don't know, let's say the Cardinals finish 5 games back, you can look at it going into next year and say maybe we were Eric Fetty not being on this roster away from being in a playoff spot. And I think you're feeling okay about it, especially with how depleted this team has been the last month.
Yeah, that's a very good point. When you look at how short you are on your roster, how thin you are with your pitching, how thin you are with your experience on the bench, and for you to still stay in this thing for this long says a lot about the manager, the staff, and throw in the fact you don't have Donovan. You're going to get Contreras back today. You didn't have Burleson. Those are 3 important pieces, and it's even more important on the defensive side. The Cardinals are one of the best defensive teams in the game. When you lose Donovan and you lose Arenado, you lose Burleson, who can play different spots, your defense suffered dramatically. I mean, we were just, it was so noticeable. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go into that on why you are who you are. But I think that if you can continue to fight and keep this thing close, who knows what happens. Along with this, you know who you are now with regard to next year. You know what you need, and now you have to figure out how do you get it. And I'm of the belief that you're going to have to make some deals, and you're going to move a player you wish you didn't have to move. Maybe because you've seen him enough where you think he's part of what you do. But, in order to get something, you have to give up something. And I really look at this roster being wide open where anybody can be dealt in order to help this team down the road.
And I think it's a matter of, this last offseason, the only really new acquisition you had was Phil Maton. And it needs to be a message to the fans of, hey, we were only 5 games back and we didn't really do anything. Look, we're going to bring this in, trade for this, and we're going to set up to at least compete. Because I think that's what fans want. But are you at all worried that with this 2027 possibly impending work stoppage, it could affect the Cardinals' decision-making in the short term?
No, I it's a good question. I think you have to think about the moment now because we don't know what that's going to look like, and to prepare for a labor issue that says you're taking your eye off the current ball. Because if you're not going to play, you're not paying anybody. Yeah. But you need to have some sort of momentum going into obviously this year in 26, and definitely momentum going into 27. So to worry about that, I don't think you can get too deep into it. I think the question is, how do you can make some trades and you want to get some people with control, but at some point you might have to sign a free agent. And the question is, how do you attract legitimate free agents? Because this isn't the Cardinals of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where everybody, hey, I want to play in St. Louis. That's not the case anymore. So you have to make sure you're attractive, and maybe with new leadership and maybe a new direction that might be more attractive to some. But I think you have to rebrand your organization also.
Yeah, and I just can't imagine Hein Bloom coming in and doing what the Cardinals did last offseason, whether right or wrong,
No,
even
no.
maybe the last few off seasons. I think he needs to step off on the right foot because you want ownership to be happy with you. You surely want the fans to be happy with you. And right now, I really don't think it's this colossal thing the Cardinals have to do to get the fans back on their side. I don't think it's a World Series run. I don't think it's winning a World Series. I think it's just putting out a competitive, fun team that will be in the mix, especially with how many playoff spots that are available now. Like there's no reason the Cardinals aren't in that third wild card at least next year. I think that should be the expectation.
No, I agree. Yeah, and if you get in, anything can happen. And I think the team we're playing right now in Seattle is a team I would not want to face because they can pitch. They have a very deep lineup. They're looking for consistency. But think about this. They have two guys in total going to have 100 home runs.
Yeah.
That's just two. They have a couple other guys. I think they have, four guys that's going to hit at least 20 or more, or maybe 5.
Yeah, right.
We don't have one. We have one.
Yeah. So
that shows you the difference in the Cardinals just don't slug. But I think Seattle, man, you get them in a short series with their pitching, they can make it very interesting for somebody.
Especially with a guy like Brian Wu, who you're pretty confident will give you basically what he gave you yesterday, almost every time out, if not better. He went 6 innings, 2 earned runs. That's I think, almost a bad performance from Wu. Like he's an ace for those players, and he goes out and shoves. That will be interesting in the playoffs for sure for them.
Yeah, they have some arms up here, and they all can throw hard. I mean, but I'm impressed with their durability. We're praying that a guy we have can get through the 5th inning. They have guys that are like looking for the 7th. And that's something that the mindset's got to change with regard to throw as hard as you can for 5 innings and we'll come get you because we have a bullpen. Well, you don't have a bullpen that good. And throwing 5 innings doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, because unless you have the A and B teams where you have a certain set of relievers that you can get you through the 6th and 7th, and then you have 2 guys for the 8th and 9th. If you don't have that consistency every night, then you just spinning your wheels, and that's kind of what we're doing now. We don't have a deep 8, is what I would say. We don't have a deep 8. You have 4 guys who you can count on. You can count on JoJo. O'Brien has moved up and really done some things, and then you have Swanson and also Leahy. They've been able to give you that core 4 that you can rely on. Now the rest of those guys are still trying to prove themselves and trying to find their way. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that this season, because I think all the jobs are going to be open for next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And if we're looking now at today's game with Matthew Liberatore, I think he's a guy that a lot of Cardinals fans were like, oh, great, he's going to be part of this 2026 rotation. But he struggled a little bit lately. And I don't think he's on the chopping block to get cut, but a few more bad performances could put his future maybe a little more in question. How does he get right, especially on the road? Because he had a good performance against the A's at home, but he's really struggled on the road. What's going on with Libby, and how can he get back on track?
I think he's part of that situation where when you're getting pushed, and remember, this is the first time he's actually been a complete starter. You hit that innings wall, and then you have to kind of recreate yourself in different ways. And I think this is just part of the learning and growth process with him. He's a bright guy, and I think that he'll take a lot from this season and make himself more effective next year. And I think the key is velocity, location, pitch selection. And I think that all comes with durability. You don't want to fall in love with certain pitches too much. And sometimes he would do that. But I look at him just as part of, as we said earlier, growth and development. This is part of that situation where you're going to see more things that you question early than you'll see success. And so I think it's reversed with him. I thought we saw a lot of good things with him early, and then he kind of regressed a little bit. Now he's kind of leveled off. So now he's got to try and find that reset button and get going in the right direction and just try and finish strong. Because he's pitched more innings this year than he ever has.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are pointing at. But do you think it's good that they didn't just shut him down or limit it? Do you think it's good that with the season not over, but the playoffs or just give
But
them the opportunity to push through?
yeah, there's nobody that needs to be shut down. Okay, if we're going to get better, these guys have to be able to fight through it. They have to learn with every outing about themselves and how they can be better for next year. You can't go in this with the mindset of, well, we're done for this year. No, you got to continue to fight. You have to continue to try and grow. And I look at them the way they're handling him and some other guys. They're going to let them eat until they can't eat anymore. Because I posed this question to some guys last night. We're watching all these teams down the stretch, and they're trying to find more pitching. They're trying to squeeze more innings out of guys. What happens when you get to the postseason? You're going to be looking at these guys give you what, 4, maybe 5 more starts as a starter if you get in the postseason. And bullpen, hey, look, we're going to shorten this thing up. We're going to throw some other guys out there who aren't going to be in the rotation, but everybody's now trying to squeeze as much as they can out of players just to get to postseason. I don't know what postseason is going to look like for some of these teams.
Yeah,
Now,
there's a lot
I
of
guess
teams.
if there's one team that I would probably think, with the Dodgers having so many guys who were injured from a pitching staff, they may be interesting to watch. I'm concerned about San Diego because of the use of their bullpen. And then when you look at everybody else, it's kind of line for line. Do they have 3 legitimate starters? B, do they have enough length in the bullpen? And if you have those 2 things, you can answer those 2 things, then you have a chance. If you're saying you're shrugging your shoulders and say, well, we're going to hope is not a solution. So you have to figure out other ways to be able to get this thing to work.
Yeah, because things turn in October. You might
Yes,
be relying on your bats all year, and once October hits, that normally it's pitching wins you the championships in
there's
October.
no doubt about it.
Now, speaking of pitching, a guy the Mariners need to step up is George Kirby. He has a 4.7 ERA this season. One of their arms that you talked about that struggled a little bit, but he's been good at home, a 3.1 ERA in Seattle. How do the Cardinals attack another guy who has a lot of prowess?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're seeing a lot of guys who are more effective at home. But with this Seattle bunch, man, they play well at home as a team. I mean, they're very tough to beat here. With Kirby, I think you have to get into these guys earlier in the count. You can go one or 2 ways. If you want to make them work and get them out of the game, you have to be able to have situations where there's 8, 9 pitch at bats. You have to make sure you can foul off some pitches. But if not, like, I'll give you a good example. Sonny Gray is a guy that if you get to 2 strikes on him, it's over. He's gonna get you out. But if you don't let him get to 2 strikes and you're swinging early and you're doing some things to keep him off balance, now it's a different story. I think in Kirby's case, I think the Cardinals need to look early and try and jump on things and quit guessing, quit taking pitches. They're the bottom of the order. Last night saw a lot of strikes that they never swung the bat. And that point, you say, what are you looking for? I mean, you're getting punched out on fastballs. Now, if you're getting punched out on the breaking stuff, maybe a changeup, maybe a good slider, okay, I get it. Maybe you don't pick it up. But man, when they're throwing heaters right down the middle and you don't react, that's a concern.
Yeah, and there were some uncompetitive. Once the Cardinals went down 4-2, it just felt like they rolled over a little bit.
It just felt like they couldn't make the adjustment. And again, Seattle has a good pitching staff. But man, it was like they brought in guys in some cases they haven't seen a lot of. But still in all, man, there's a lot of preparation that goes into these games. And everybody knows who can do what. So it's not like you're a lost leader here. You have to find different ways to be able to come up with your own plan B and make the necessary adjustment. And we didn't do it last night.
Now I want to tell you guys quickly about our sponsor, DraftKings. Missouri, get ready. The wait is almost over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is coming soon to the Show Me State, and you can sign up today. New Missouri customers can get $300 in bonus bets when we launch on December 1st. Download now and place a $5 bet when we go live. It brings you everything, including live in-game betting, lightning-fast payouts, and endless ways to get in on the app action. Download the most trusted sportsbook app. Safe, secure, and has fast money withdrawals. Use code STL Sports for your $300 Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Excludes customers who redeem pre-launch sign-up offer. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. And Claves, before we get out of here, is there anything else you're looking for today? Maybe a bounce back for the Cardinals? Because as you said, the Mets are facing a tough Phillies team in Philadelphia. You can't rule out them losing another game or two in this series.
Well, you get Wilson Contreras back. I think that's a plus. You got Burleson back last night, and there's a good chance you're going to have Donovan by the weekend. Nolan Arenado should be ready on Monday. So, you're starting to see those pieces come together. Now, can they put on a charge and turn this thing around? I don't know. But I feel better with those guys in the lineup than I have with some other people. So I'm looking for Wilson to be able to do something early, much like we saw with Burleson last night.
Yeah, I think either way, Cardinals fans just hoping for some competitive baseball these last few weeks. You don't want to limp into the offseason. Because these are the guys that you will probably have on your roster next year. A lot of them.
I don't think so. I'm going in a different direction. I think we've seen enough of everyone to know who can be here and who can't. And I don't think anyone is safe in that regard. I mean, I know what your contract may say, but remember, there aren't a lot of long-term contracts on this team. And you may have some arbitration-eligible players, but I think overall, you're going to have to make some moves. And that doesn't mean that these guys can't be on the team, but in the role that they serve, they may be more complementary than being a core, if that makes sense. So, we'll see.
Maybe I should have said that you're fighting for your role on the team.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
I was wrapping it up, but I want to ask you this real quick. How many players on this team, and if you can name them, are you pretty confident will be on this roster next year? If you had to give a 90% at least confidence rating that this player will be on the roster opening day. There's only a few in my mind.
Maybe 3, 4.
When?
No, you asked me how many. Yeah, I'm not giving you the name. I'm just thinking off the top of my head.
Okay.
I think you have 3 guys in the bullpen that you would definitely see next year. I think you have at least 1 infielder and at least 1 outfielder. You'll have 1 catcher for sure. And then after that, I think everything else is up for grabs.
Well, read into that how you will. Thank you, Mike Claiborne, for joining us on Cards 365. As always, first pitch today at 8:40. Tune in late here in St. Louis for the post-game show. He's Mike Claiborne. I'm Grant Salzman. That's all we have for now. Thanks for tuning in.